Greetings and welcome to the second episode of the history of ILA. Today's episode is gonna feature the events that happened in November 2015 and at the beginning of December 2015. ILA Council and members insisted that Yanvan shouldn't leave the team, but instead a reform is needed. As you could see in the previous episode, the reform started with these new rules. I think you all agree that the most important of them was rule number 2, that states that ILA will have recruitments for all topics. That actually helped ILA to get over a very difficult period that followed this decision. Despite facing some difficulties at the beginning of the month, I can confidently say that a word that perfectly describes the middle of November was enthusiasm. A day after, our official logo has been designed, thanks to Breezy. A few days after, another excellent idea has been proposed. So the council started to build our own website. However, it is important to mention that ILA wasn't the first team that established a website. First team that has done that was the Superior Network. The website has been designed in a pretty basic way. However, it was very useful and members really liked it. Firstly, the council uploaded the list of members. This list had several subcategories, but they weren't based on the rank of the ILA member like it's now with Golden or Master. They were based on the categories their favorite topics were part of. For example, here you can see the subcategory of players who excelled at sport topics. Also, the winners of ILA tournament were displayed here. The ILA Champions page was dedicated to our top members. It was something like our Hall of Fame right now on our actual website. Now let's take a look at the effects of rule number 2. As expected, they were quite fruitful. Many top players decided to join ILA. The ascent of the team has become more and more visible, with Theo and Yanvan doing an excellent job. Unfortunately, at the end of November, Theo announced that he won't be able to fulfill his leader task for a while, so Yanvan remained the only leader. It is very interesting that Yanvan immediately rejected the possibility of choosing an interim leader to replace Theo during his absence. Instead, he only asked for a person that could be second in charge in case he is not available. Following some deliberations, it was decided that this will be the new format of the council, with Yanvan as leader, Boltenhagen as vice leader, and Spencer and Nvidia as secondary leaders, and also some other assistant leaders. The most important of them being Julian, who later became ILA leader. Another important issue that had been addressed by ILA leader was the communication between members, which was of paramount importance in order to bond the members. Hence, Yanvan and Boltenhagen suggested to make 2 Skype groups. However, after some discussions with the members, the council decided to create a WhatsApp group. The group grew quickly and became very active. Despite losing one leader, everything seemed to work excellently for ILA. Unfortunately, at this point, All important quiz-up teams back then had very hot-tempered council members. And of course, some hot-tempered members. Back then, teams were something very divisive. There wasn't much respect, communication or collaboration between the leaders of ILA, Key and the superior network. For example, a team versus team tournament back then seemed impossible to happen. We'll discuss ILA TSN conflict first, and then we will see what happened between Key and ILA. First of all, ILA and TSN had been great rivals in the ranks. ILA members and TSN members were competing for same titles in several topics, and we have to admit that very often the titles were claimed by TSN members. ILA claimed that many of these titles had been won by cheating. But it is important to point out that back in the autumn of 2015, the use of multiple devices hadn't been forbidden by the QuizUp staff yet, so it was considered only an unethical meme, not a forbidden one. Hence, ILA claims had inflamed TSN leaders, as you can see in this screenshot. Another unpleasant incident that featured an ILA member happened at the end of November. As you can see, he tried to convince TSN members to switch teams and come to ILA, and that provoked TSN leaders even more. However, ILA leadership dealt with this issue and removed the player from ILA. They've also warned the other assistant leaders to not recruit like that. It is very interesting that even during such wild times an action like this wasn't tolerated. Sorry. Boltenhagen asked for calm and diplomacy, but it was a bit too late. Some of TSN leaders are also mocking ILA a lot, so the relation grew more and more tensioned. Now about ILA Key conflict, it wasn't really a big deal. ILA members were inflamed by some claims that Key is a better team than ILA, so Yen and Adam came in a Key topic with some hate posts. Key leaders reacted with some hate posts in ILA topic. Unfortunately, I cannot find them because they were deleted. Anyway, both sides acted in a wrong way. The first period, while Ian Van had been ILA leader, or how I'd like to call it, Ian Van's first reign was marked by authority. He used to criticize a lot the other council members, but never questioned himself about his faults. You know, sometimes the more powerful you become, the more you start thinking that all your actions are good and right. Every time members left the team, Ian Van seemed more and more consumed by this, probably considering it a failure of the council. But again, he was not the one to blame for that, or at least according to him. At last, in its struggle to deal with his interior conflict, Ian Van took a shocking decision for almost everyone.